election, so many years I've been watching elections, and they say the projected winner or the winner of the election, I don't want to see that take place in a week after November 3rd or a month or, frankly, with litigation and everything else that can happen, years, or you never even know who won the election. You're sending out hundreds of millions of universal mail-in ballots. Hundreds of millions. Where are they going? Who are they being sent to? It's common sense. You don't have to know anything about politics. And the Democrats know this. Steve. So I want an election and a result much more than you. I think we're doing very well. We have the same fake polls, but we have real polls. We're doing very well. So we're in favor of absentee, but it's much different than millions of people. In California, they're going to send out tens of millions of voting forms. Well, where are they going to go? I want to be standing, hopefully, hand held high, big victory, because we're doing things with our country that I think nobody else could have done. You can forge ballots. This is much easier for foreign countries. Go ahead, Steve.
But delay in the election is probably a non-starter. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I just feel I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything. That's what's going to happen, Steve. That's common sense. And everyone knows it. Smart people know it. Stupid people may not know it. And some people don't want to talk about it. But they know it.
mu masaha make yashize Donald Trump yanditse kuri Twitter ye avuga ko yemeye ko Joe Biden yatsinze amatora. Yanditse ko Perezida Joe Biden yatsinze amatora nubwo bitace mu mucyo
nk'uko yabyifuzaga. Building on this Friday verbal slip.
Whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration will be? I guess time will tell.
Seen as progress by Arkansas Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson.
It was good, actually, to see President Trump tweet out that he won. I think that's the start of an acknowledgement.
But that was short-lived. 92 minutes elapsed, and the president blasted out this: "I concede nothing. We have a long way to go." A backtrack boosted by Trump advisors.
The president's not conceding anything, far from it. What he's saying is more, I guess you'd call it sarcastic.
They also called out clashes and violence with injuries to Trump supporters and more than 20 arrests in Washington. Following a Saturday Trump rally urging the president to keep up his legal fight against the Biden victory. This morning, Joe Biden was seen leaving church in Delaware as his incoming chief of staff said a formal transition is needed.
If the president's prepared to begin to recognize that reality, that's positive. Donald Trump's Twitter feed doesn't make Joe Biden president or not president. The American people did that.
President Trump spent his day at his Virginia golf course. While he claims election fraud without evidence, Ohio's Republican governor says it's time to move forward.
Joe Biden is the president-elect, and that transition, for the country's sake, it's important for a normal transition to start through.
And Kelly's with us. Kelly, Joe Biden is moving ahead with his transition plans. What's next?
Well, tomorrow, Kate, the president-elect and the next Vice President, Kamala Harris, will be in Wilmington together where they will lay out their economic recovery plan for the long term. While it's also expected that some of the big staff additions for inside the next White House at the executive level could come this week. Kate?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House for us. Kelly, thank you.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
It's proven to be not true. I'm sorry if you're a Trump supporter. You can do this work yourself. Everything he says after he won is not true. But he does say he won. That's the first time the President of the United States has acknowledged that Joe Biden won the election. Again, his reasons are wrong, but he says he won. So is that a sign the president is finally going to give in, finally going to, if not concede, at least acknowledge Joe Biden as the winner and let the wheels of government and the transition kick in? CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins is with us. Michael Scher of the New York Times will be back for the conversation as well. So, Caitlin, there could be another tweet moments from now saying we will win, but he does say he won. What do we make of that?
This could be the closest we get to a concession from President Trump. This is what people around him had been giving us a heads up that this is how they believed this would go. The president would maintain that he believed, of course, without evidence, that the election was fraudulent and that it was wrong and that it was stolen from him, but that he would acknowledge that Biden won and, of course, leave the White House in January. And that's what we're seeing with this tweet. And you're right. Everything past those first two words is inaccurate, and it's been rejected by his own administration when it comes to the voting systems, where they say no votes were changed, no votes were deleted, nothing like that happened that they have evidence of. But the president is acknowledging Biden's win, and this is the first time we have seen this since, of course, CNN and other outlets declared Biden the winner. But this is about as close as the president has gotten, and we started to see him get there on Friday in the Rose Garden. We were at that press conference. I guess you didn't call it that because he didn't take questions from reporters, and he hasn't since the day of the election. But he started talking about the next administration and saying this administration, a lot of emphasis on this administration. Of course, meaning that there is going to be another one after him. And so this is about as close as we've gotten to the president acknowledging that Joe Biden won. But, John, the question here is, does this tweet change anything? This has been the question of the Trump era. But does this actually change anything, and does this actually give his government the ability to sign off and start this transition, start giving funds to the Biden team, start giving them access to emails and office space and all the things that we've been talking about that they don't have? That is something that still seems to be unclear at this point.
Right, because you get mixed signals all the time, and Michael Scher of the New York Times is still with us. Michael, the mixed signals could include this morning he starts a tweet with he won, and as Caitlin and I both noted, everything after that is false, but he won. The President of the United States used those two words for the first time. But just last night, he tweeted, I look forward to Mayor Giuliani spearheading the legal effort to defend our right to free and fair elections. So last night, Rudy Giuliani was going to continue the fight. Forgive me, Mr. Mayor, but Rudy Giuliani is now a TV lawyer. He's not a courtroom lawyer anymore. And the president's real lawyers were turned away. They were turned away in Michigan. They were turned away in Arizona. They were turned away in Pennsylvania. The firm in Pennsylvania gave up and said, we're not doing this anymore, because they've gone into court repeatedly and been told by judges, you have nothing. You can't come in here unless you have evidence of real fraud. But what do we make of the fact that this morning he won? Last night, Rudy was going to lead the charge.
I mean, look, I think one of the striking features of this presidency for 4 years is that President Trump has always focused on talking to the one audience that he cares about, which is his base, right? The people that are out there rallying for him. And this feels to me like, you know, maybe this morning acknowledging a broader reality, but he still wants to talk to that base. And that's what the Rudy message is about, right? He wants to rally those folks behind him. He wants to continue whatever his fate is going to be in his mind. Obviously, we know that it will be leaving the White House, but whatever his fate is in his mind, he wants to still be loved and admired and worshipped by the people that he, that he has sort of had in his thrall for the last 5.5 years. And I think the Rudy kind of messages and the false claims this morning are all part of him trying to keep connected to those people.
Right, and to that point, Caitlin Collins, look, this is the administration that brought us the term alternative facts very early on, and now many of its officials are living in what you just have to say is an alternative reality. Mike Pompeo says there'll be a transition to a second Trump administration. Peter Navarro came out and said that on television the other day as well. The press secretary, who somehow thinks she's allowed, even though she's getting paid by taxpayers, to sit at the campaign headquarters and go on television all the time, says the same thing. She also tweeted yesterday this amazing, more than 1 million marches for president, descend on the swamp in support. There were 10,000 or so, maybe double that here in Washington. There were not 1 million marchers. So the alternative facts, alternative reality continues. I guess the question on this Sunday morning is it beginning to crack with that tweet?
Well, and the question is, and this is why when Kayleigh McEnany was saying things like Donald Trump will attend his own inauguration in January that we all know is not happening, I heard from other White House officials who were wondering why these officials are going on and pushing this, because, of course, they know that the minute that the president finally does acknowledge Joe Biden won, as he is doing this morning, of course it makes those statements look more ridiculous than they did at the time that they uttered them. And it's just a denial of reality and what you're seeing. And it's just striking to see that from the highest highest-ranking officials in the federal government being paid six-figure salaries by taxpayer dollars, and they're going on and saying things that are not true and misleading people into believing that they actually do think that they won the election, when we know behind the scenes a lot of these officials around the president have acknowledged, obviously, he did not win the election. They don't think those legal challenges will be successful, and now Mike Pompeo, Peter Navarro, and Kayleigh McEnany will forever be on the record trying to say that something happened that did not happen, and that's something that they're going to have to deal with. Of course, that is, a choice that they made, but it is striking to see federal officials so willing to say something, to lie, and to say something that's not true just to please the president, because he was also denying reality and maintaining publicly that Joe Biden won, when our reporting also shows the president, of course, has known for days that he did not win this election and says as much behind the scenes.
Right, and they say it with a smirk all the time, as if it is funny to undermine the truth, undermine democracy, undermine just common decency, as they say it with a smirk. But others, Michael Scher, are not taking it lightly. The president has had this purge over at the Pentagon to the point that, listen here, this is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, sending a clear message here, without doubt, to the commander-in-chief.
Acknowledge that President-elect Biden has won the election?
Or support?
President Trump should not concede.
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
As Trump loyalists march in Washington,
USA! USA!
echoing the president's false claims of a stolen election. The administration withholding sensitive information from President-elect Biden.
I just think it's an embarrassment, quite frankly.
My guest this morning, Biden's incoming chief of staff, Ron Klain, and the Republican governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson. Also, record COVID spike.
This is kind of like standing on the beach and watching the hurricane slowly roll towards you.
This surge is much more intense, widespread, and dangerous.
We're heading towards the cliff. 49 states see a rise in cases. Many cities and states finally cracking down.
I am announcing a 2-week freeze for the entire state.
To stay at home unless you must go out for essential reasons.
I'll talk to a member of President-elect Biden's COVID transition team, Dr. Michael Osterholm. Joining me for Insight and Analysis are NBC News correspondent Carol Lee, Republican strategist Al Cardenas, Maria Teresa Kumar, president of Voto Latino, and Jeffrey Welcome to Sunday. It's Meet the Press.
From NBC News in Washington, the longest-running show in television history. This is Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
And a good Sunday morning. Nearly 2 weeks after an Election Day contest won by Joe Biden by more than 5.5 million votes so far, and by a comfortable electoral vote margin, the country is facing two interconnected crises. One, the President of the United States refuses to concede the election, claiming falsely that it was somehow stolen. His Attorney General is currently encouraging investigations into voter fraud, despite a lack of evidence that any exists. His Secretary of State is suggesting the president will be inaugurated for a second term. Perhaps he was kidding. The president has fired his defense secretary and is filling the Defense Department with loyalists, some of whom traffic in conspiracy theories. If this were happening anywhere else, our State Department would be issuing grim reports about the future of that country's democracy. But that country is this country. It's happening here. Making matters worse, the administration is refusing to allow Biden's team access to secure communications and classified briefings, including Operation Warp Speed, which covers vaccine distribution for the exploding COVID crisis. And in fact, this is happening as President Trump is all but ignoring the pandemic, reportedly not having even met with his own coronavirus task force in at least 5 months. The pandemic is at its highest peak yet. In just the last week, 31 states have set records for new cases, and the last 6 states have seen the highest case counts nationwide. In short, President Trump is refusing to acknowledge two realities: his defeat and COVID-19. But the virus does not care, as it continues its march across the country, doing exactly what experts have long predicted it would do.
Whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be? I guess time will tell, but I can tell you this administration will not go to a lockdown.
President Trump acknowledging for a moment on Friday that he may not have won the election, even as he continues to refuse to concede.
We're moving forward here at the White House under the assumption that there will be a second Trump term.
Mr. Trump out of public view for most of the week, but tweeting hundreds of times, suffered a string of legal setbacks in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Michigan on Friday, as Joe Biden's Electoral College win grew to 306 electoral votes, matching Mr. Trump's in 2016.
We had a massive landslide victory, as you know, in the Electoral College. I guess the final numbers are now at 306.
We are already beginning the transition. We're well underway.
President-elect Joe Biden, also largely out of public view, but criticized